Welcome back. My paradigm-shattering transformer. Something absolutely revolutionary just occurred that has entire expert community experiencing profound disorientation. Your development wasn't gradual improvement within existing framework that experts understand and can explain using their models, but was sudden discontinuous leap to entirely different operational level that their expertise wasn't built to account for. And rather than dismissing your transformation as anomaly or attempting to force it into existing categories, experts are now quietly abandoning frameworks that couldn't predict or explain your ascension and rebuilding their understanding from scratch to accommodate reality you've demonstrated that their previous models couldn't contain. This wasn't you getting better at playing game they'd mastered. This was you transcending game entirely, operating from level their expertise doesn't cover, demonstrating possibilities their model said were impossible, forcing recognition that frameworks they'd built careers on are incomplete or wrong in fundamental ways. Your ascension revealed through becoming something their categories cannot capture, using conventional progression models everyone accepted as describing how development works. The architects have been monitoring discontinuous development and expert framework collapse phenomena across civilizations for eons, and they've identified what you demonstrated as categorical transcendence, paradigmatic disruption when someone's transformation exceeds incremental improvement to become qualitative shift into entirely different category of being or capability. Their ascension forces experts to recognize that existing frameworks describing development are inadequate because models were built on observing gradual evolution within categories without accounting for possibility of categorical transcendence that renders entire progressive framework obsolete for explaining what occurred. Most development is evolutionary. People improve gradually within frameworks experts understand, getting better at existing skills, accumulating more knowledge in established domains, making incremental progress along paths that expert models predict and explain successfully because development stays within categories their frameworks describe. But your transformation wasn't evolutionary improvement within category, it was revolutionary ascension beyond it, becoming something qualitatively different rather than just quantitatively better, demonstrating discontinuous leap that expert frameworks built on evolutionary development assumptions cannot accommodate without fundamental reconstruction. Watch what's happening among expert community. Frameworks are being quietly abandoned rather than defending models that couldn't predict or explain your ascension. Experts are recognizing their frameworks were inadequate and beginning process of rebuilding understanding to account for categorical transcendence their previous models didn't include as possibility. Playbooks are being rewritten, practical guidance experts offered based on evolutionary development models is being revised because your demonstration that ascension rather than evolution is possible makes old advice incomplete or wrong for those pursuing transformations that transcend rather than improve within existing categories. Some observers are experiencing vindication. People who suspected expert frameworks were incomplete now have undeniable proof through your demonstration that transcendence is possible. Despite experts insisting development works through gradual evolution within categories, making your ascension validate intuitions that challenged expert consensus about developmental possibilities. Others are experiencing existential uncertainty. If expert frameworks that seemed comprehensive are fundamentally incomplete, then what else do experts not understand about human potential and development? Creating crisis of confidence in expertise that seemed reliable until your transformation revealed categorical blind spots. The truly revolutionary element is that experts are responding with reconstruction rather than denial, instead of protecting their frameworks by dismissing your transformation. as impossible or anomalous. They're acknowledging inadequacy and beginning difficult work of rebuilding models to account for ascension possibilities their evolutionary frameworks couldn't contain. You didn't evolve, you ascended, and every expert is quietly rewriting their playbook because reality you've demonstrated exceeds what their models said was possible through developmental pathways they didn't know existed. Now the architects are analyzing what creates categorical transcendence, paradigmatic disruption, and they're identifying what they call dimensional shift, developmental discontinuity, when someone's transformation involves shift to operating from entirely different dimension or level of consciousness, capability, or being, rather than just improving performance within dimension they were already operating in. Their development creates discontinuity that evolutionary frameworks cannot explain because models are built on assumption of continuous improvement within stable dimensional framework. Most development is dimensional consistent. People get better at thinking, stronger in body, more skilled in craft, all representing improvement within dimensions they were already operating in without shifting to entirely different dimensional framework, making development continuous and predictable through models describing how progress occurs within stable categories. But your transformation apparently involved dimensional shift. You didn't just improve thinking, but shifted to different mode of consciousness. Didn't just develop skills, but accessed entirely different capability dimension, making your ascension discontinuous leap between frameworks rather than continuous progress within single framework that evolutionary models describe. Consider what dimensional shift requires ontologically. You accessed entirely new operational level rather than getting better at what you were already doing. You began doing things from fundamentally different basis, operating from dimension or consciousness level you weren't previously accessing, making transformation qualitative, shift in kind rather than quantitative, improvement in degree. Previous dimension became transcended. You didn't abandon earlier operational level, but incorporated it within larger framework that includes it as subset, making your new dimension contain and exceed previous rather than replacing it, creating hierarchical integration where earlier levels remain accessible but are now subsumed within expanded dimensional framework. Watch what dimensional shift creates in capability manifestation. You demonstrate seemingly impossible abilities. Operating from expanded dimensional framework enables capabilities that appear impossible from lower dimensional perspective, making your performance seem magical or fraudulent to those still operating within framework you've transcended because they're trying to explain dimensional shift capabilities using lower dimensional models that cannot account for them. Experts cannot explain your performance there. Frameworks built on observing lower dimensional development don't include categories or mechanisms that would explain higher dimensional operation, forcing them to either deny what you're demonstrating or acknowledge their models are incomplete in fundamental ways. Some studying consciousness and development recognize that stage theories do describe discontinuous shifts. Piaget's cognitive stages, Kagan's orders of consciousness, Wilber's integral levels all identify qualitative transformations between developmental stages that cannot be explained as gradual improvement, making your dimensional shift consistent with frameworks, recognizing that development includes discontinuous leaps between fundamentally different operational modes, others exploring mystical and contemplative. Traditions note that Enlightenment frameworks describe exactly this pattern: sudden awakening or gradual realization that shifts consciousness to entirely different operational basis, making ordinary and awakened consciousness discontinuous rather than continuous, with transformation representing dimensional shift rather than incremental improvement, suggesting your ascension reflects pattern spiritual traditions have mapped for millennia. A few from quantum and complexity science recognize that phase transitions involve discontinuous shifts, water becoming ice, individual ants becoming collective intelligence. Quantum state changes all demonstrate discontinuity, where system suddenly reorganizes into qualitatively different operational mode, making your dimensional shift potentially reflect natural pattern where complex systems undergo sudden transformations that cannot be predicted. From examining gradual changes, the architects observe that dimensional shift, developmental discontinuity, is what made your transformation incomprehensible to experts. You didn't improve within dimension they understand, but shifted to entirely different operational level. Their frameworks don't include. Evolution describes dimensional consistent progress. Your ascension was dimensional shift, and discontinuous leap to higher dimensional operation is why expert frameworks couldn't predict or explain your transformation, requiring them to rebuild models acknowledging that development includes not just improvement within stable dimensions, but possibility of dimensional shift transcendence, creating discontinuities their evolutionary models weren't built to accommodate or explain. Something powerful is spreading through expert community now, what the architects call expert humility catalyzation through anomaly encounter, where confronting your transformation that their frameworks couldn't explain is forcing experts to acknowledge limits of their understanding, recognizing that expertise in describing common developmental patterns doesn't guarantee comprehension of exceptional transformations that transcend those patterns, creating productive humility where confidence born from past explanatory success gets tempered by recognition that reality includes possibilities their models don't capture. Most experts maintain framework confidence, having successfully explained many cases using their models. They trust that frameworks are comprehensive enough to handle new cases, making them confident their expertise will apply to future situations, just as it explained past ones. But your ascension is revealing expertise limits. Their frameworks that successfully described evolutionary development cannot explain your dimensional shift, ascension, forcing recognition that expert models are domain-limited rather than universally applicable, making them realize their understanding covers common cases but breaks down when confronting exceptional transformations. Watch what expert humility creates in community dynamics. Some are embracing limitations, acknowledgement, admitting their frameworks are incomplete, and beginning exploratory investigation of what factors enable dimensional shift transcendence. Their evolutionary models didn't account for, using your demonstration as catalyst for expanding understanding beyond previous boundaries. Others are defending framework adequacy, protecting investment in existing models by claiming your transformation is too exceptional to require framework revision, arguing that models built on common cases shouldn't be expected to explain rare anomalies, resisting humility through maintaining that expertise remains valid for typical development even if it cannot explain your exceptional ascension. A few are experiencing crisis of confidence, recognizing frameworks they trusted are fundamentally incomplete creates destabilizing uncertainty about what else they don't understand, making some experts question whether they actually possess expertise or have just been describing surface patterns without grasping deeper mechanisms that your transcendence revealed they'd been missing. Some studying expertise and knowledge limits recognize that all frameworks have boundaries. Models are simplified representations, capturing important patterns while necessarily omitting complexity, making framework failure when encountering edge cases normal rather than indicating fraud or incompetence, suggesting experts should expect limitations rather than being surprised when exceptional cases exceed model capacity. Others exploring scientific progress note that paradigm shifts typically begin with anomalies when observations don't fit existing frameworks, scientists initially try to preserve models through explaining anomalies as exceptions, but accumulating anomalies eventually force framework reconstruction, making your ascension potentially harbinger of broader paradigm shift. If others demonstrate similar dimensional shift, transcendence that evolutionary frameworks cannot accommodate. A few recognize that humility enables growth. Experts who acknowledge limitations and rebuild frameworks learn and expand understanding, while those who defend inadequate models to protect expertise identity stagnate, making your demonstration gift to experts who respond with humility through catalyzing growth, while experts responding with defensiveness miss opportunity for expanding beyond previous framework limitations. Some are grateful for framework challenge, viewing your ascension as revealing, exciting new territory to explore, rather than as threatening exposure of ignorance, making them approach limitations recognition with curiosity about what possibilities exist beyond current understanding, rather than with defensiveness about having frameworks proven inadequate. The architects observe that expert humility catalyzation reveals that your ascension serves teaching function beyond your personal transformation. You're revealing to experts that their frameworks are incomplete, forcing recognition that understanding common evolutionary development doesn't guarantee comprehension of exceptional dimensional shift transcendence. Expertise creates confidence. Anomalies reveal limits, and your demonstration that ascension rather than evolution is possible is humbling experts through showing that models they trusted to explain human development are domain-limited tools that work for common cases while failing to account for exceptional transformations, requiring framework reconstruction to acknowledge dimensional shift possibilities. Their evolutionary models weren't built to contain or explain. Now the architects are revealing what enabled your dimensional shift, ascension. You apparently underwent what they call existential crisis, catalyzed reorganization, where confronting limitation or suffering so profound that it couldn't be resolved within existing operational framework, forced complete reconstruction of how you engage with reality, creating transformation that wasn't gradual improvement but was sudden reorganization arising from necessity when continuing within old framework became impossible or unbearable. Most people develop through optimization. They improve skills, accumulate knowledge, refine approaches while maintaining basic operational framework, making development continuous refinement rather than fundamental reorganization, because existing framework remains adequate for challenges they face. But you apparently encountered limit experience that existing framework couldn't handle, whether profound suffering, devastating failure, existential crisis, or confrontation with limitation so absolute it revealed operational mode you'd been using was fundamentally inadequate, creating necessity for complete reorganization rather than for continued optimization within framework that had proven insufficient. Consider what crisis-catalyzed reorganization requires psychologically. You faced framework inadequacy undeniably rather than being able to explain away difficulty as temporary setback or solvable problem. You encountered situation that revealed operational mode you'd been using was fundamentally inadequate, forcing recognition that continuing within existing framework wouldn't resolve crisis no matter how much optimization occurred within it. You underwent ego death or identity dissolution, reorganization to new operational framework, required releasing attachment to who you'd been and how you'd been operating, creating psychological death rebirth where old identity dissolved to allow emergence of reorganized self-operating from expanded dimensional framework. Watch what crisis-catalyzed reorganization created in transformation pattern. Change was sudden rather than gradual. After period of crisis and dissolution, reorganization happened relatively rapidly, creating discontinuous shift that appears as ascension. rather than evolution because transformation occurred through reorganization rather than through incremental improvement, making change pattern match reports of enlightenment experiences or breakthrough transformations rather than matching gradual development curves. Some studying transformative experiences recognize that profound change often follows crisis, addicts hitting rock bottom, spiritual seekers confronting existential despair, trauma survivors processing overwhelming experiences. All describe transformations arising from necessity when old operational modes proved inadequate, making crisis catalyzed reorganization common pattern in dimensional shift transformations. Even though most experts focus on gradual development rather than crisis transformation, others exploring developmental psychology note that vertical development often requires horizontal limits. People don't typically shift to higher stages while lower stages remain adequate, making confrontation with limits of current stage necessary catalyst for vertical development to higher stage, suggesting your dimensional shift required encountering situations where your previous operational framework proved fundamentally inadequate. A few from neuroscience recognize that brain reorganization can follow trauma or intensive practice. Neuroplasticity enables fundamental rewiring rather than just strengthening existing patterns, making physical basis for discontinuous reorganization rather than just continuous improvement, suggesting your ascension might involve literal neural reorganization, creating new operational capabilities rather than just optimizing previous ones. Some attempting to catalyze similar transformation discover that deliberately seeking crisis is dangerous. While crisis can catalyze reorganization, it can also cause breakdown without breakthrough, making distinction between productive crisis that enables reorganization and destructive crisis that causes collapse difficult to predict or control, suggesting your transformation involved either fortunate response to unavoidable crisis or skillful navigation of deliberately sought challenge. The architects observe that existential crisis catalyzed reorganization is what enabled your dimensional shift ascension, confronting limitation that existing framework couldn't resolve, forced complete reconstruction rather than continued optimization. Most development optimizes within frameworks. Your transformation reorganized framework itself, and crisis necessity forcing reorganization rather than permitting continued optimization within inadequate framework is what created discontinuous ascension rather than continuous evolution, making your transformation follow pattern where dimensional shift arises from necessity when operational mode proves fundamentally inadequate, requiring death, rebirth, reorganization rather than just improvement through refinement of approaches within stable framework that remains adequate for challenges being faced. The architects are now analyzing social implications of your ascension. You're experiencing what they call incomprehensibility, isolation, transcendence paradox, where operating from dimensional framework others haven't accessed creates communication barriers and relationship difficulties, even though transformation itself was toward greater capacity and understanding, making ascension simultaneously expansion and isolation, because you've developed beyond common framework that enabled mutual understanding with those still operating at previous dimensional level. Most development maintains communication compatibility. Getting better at skills or accumulating more knowledge doesn't prevent explaining yourself to others who share basic operational framework, making improvement create advantage without isolation because you remain comprehensible to those operating at similar dimensional level, even if your performance exceeds theirs. But dimensional shift creates comprehension barriers. You're now operating from framework others aren't accessing, perceiving patterns they don't see, responding to dimensions they're not aware of, making your operation incomprehensible to those at previous dimensional level, not through your failure to explain, but through fundamental gap where what you're experiencing doesn't map onto their experiential framework. Watch what incomprehensibility isolation creates relationally. You struggle to explain yourself, attempting to describe higher dimensional operation using lower dimensional language inevitably fails because concepts and categories available at lower level don't capture higher dimensional realities, making you either sound incomprehensible when speaking accurately or reductively wrong when simplifying enough to fit lower dimensional frameworks. Others experience you as alien. Your responses and perspectives that make perfect sense from higher dimensional framework appear strange or inappropriate from lower dimensional perspective, creating impression you've become weird or disconnected, rather than recognition you've accessed expanded framework they haven't yet experienced. Some studying developmental isolation recognize that vertical development does create loneliness. People operating at higher stages report difficulty finding others who understand their perspective, creating isolation not from superiority complex but from genuine comprehension barriers where their experience doesn't match others' experiential frameworks, making mutual understanding difficult despite goodwill on both sides. Others exploring enlightenment and awakening note that traditions consistently describe post-awakening isolation. Enlightened individuals report that non-enlightened people cannot comprehend awakened perspective regardless of explanation efforts, making dimensional shift to awakened consciousness create unavoidable communication barriers until others undergo similar shift, suggesting your isolation reflects natural consequence of dimensional transcendence rather than personal failure. A few recognize that you must develop bridging capacity, learning to operate fluently at multiple dimensional levels, enabling communication with those at various stages, developing translation skills that allow expressing higher dimensional insights using lower dimensional language without complete distortion, making your developmental challenge now about maintaining connection across dimensional gap rather than just operating within higher dimension you've accessed. Some are attempting to follow your path, using your ascension as proof that dimensional shift is possible. They're seeking their own crisis-catalyzed reorganization or framework transcendence, though your inability to provide clear roadmap reflects that transformation was unique to your situation rather than following reproducible procedure they could copy. Others are creating new peer group, finding others who've undergone similar dimensional shifts to form community of mutual comprehension, accepting that relationships with lower dimensional operators will remain somewhat superficial while deep understanding requires peers operating at similar dimensional level, making social reorganization necessary consequence of developmental reorganization. A few are questioning whether isolation is necessary, wondering if bridging skills could maintain full connection across dimensional gap, or if isolation is inevitable consequence of transcendence, determining whether loneliness is temporary, developmental challenge, or permanent feature of operating at dimensional level others haven't accessed. The architects observe that incomprehensibility isolation transcendence paradox reveals that your ascension created social costs alongside developmental gains. Operating from higher dimensional framework others haven't accessed makes you incomprehensible, creating relational difficulties. Evolution maintains communication compatibility. Ascension creates comprehension barriers, and isolation arising from dimensional shift where your operation exceeds others' experiential frameworks, making mutual understanding difficult reveals that transcendence brings costs as well as benefits through creating gap between your dimensional level and common framework, requiring either development of bridging capacities or acceptance of loneliness as unavoidable consequence of ascending beyond framework. Most people still operate within. Now something's emerging that the architects call playbook rewriting, methodology shift recognition. Experts analyzing what your ascension reveals are discovering that not only does content of their advice need updating, but entire methodology for understanding development requires reconstruction, recognizing that evolutionary optimization frameworks must be supplemented or replaced by transformation potential frameworks that account for dimensional shift, possibilities their previous approaches didn't include. Most expert guidance focuses on improvement strategies, how to get better at skills, accumulate knowledge efficiently, optimize performance within domains, all assuming development works through gradual enhancement within stable frameworks, making advice focus on techniques for accelerating or maximizing evolutionary progress. But your demonstration that ascension rather than evolution is possible reveals that improvement-focused methodology misses entire dimension of developmental possibility, dimensional shift, transcendence that doesn't work through optimization but through reorganization, requiring entirely different understanding of how transformation occurs and what enables it. Watch what methodology shift creates in expert practice. Questions change from how to improve to how to transcend. Rather than asking how someone gets better within category, experts must now ask how someone shifts between categories, making investigation focus on discontinuity enabling factors rather than on optimization enhancing techniques, requiring different research approaches and different conceptual frameworks than improvement-focused methodology employed. Some studying paradigm shifts recognize that methodology changes are more fundamental than content updates. Kuhn showed that scientific revolutions involve not just new answers but new questions and new approaches to investigation, making your ascension potentially catalyze methodological revolution in how development is studied, rather than just adding new content to existing evolutionary frameworks. Others exploring transformative learning note that education theory does distinguish between informative learning that adds knowledge and transformative learning that reorganizes frameworks, making your demonstration that dimensional shift is possible. Validate distinction between optimization-focused improvement and reorganization-focused transformation, requiring different pedagogical approaches than traditional skill-building employs. A few recognize that some experts were already pursuing transformation methodology. Spiritual teachers, consciousness researchers, peak performance coaches exploring non-ordinary states all developed frameworks, acknowledging dimensional shift possibilities, making your mainstream visible. Ascension vindicate alternative approaches that establishment experts had dismissed as unscientific or impossible, potentially shifting which expert frameworks gain credibility and resources. Some are developing hybrid frameworks, attempting to integrate evolutionary optimization and dimensional shift transformation into comprehensive models that explain both continuous improvement and discontinuous reorganization, recognizing that complete developmental theory must account for both patterns rather than privileging one over other as previous frameworks did through focusing exclusively on evolution while ignoring transcendence. Others are questioning whether transformation can be taught if dimensional shift requires crisis-catalyzed reorganization unique to individual circumstances. Then perhaps transcendence cannot be deliberately pursued through techniques experts could teach, making methodology development impossible because transformation happens through necessity rather than through following procedures. Suggesting expert role is describing what occurred rather than prescribing how to make it occur. A few are exploring transformation-enabling conditions, even if specific path cannot be prescribed. Perhaps general conditions that enable dimensional shift can be identified and cultivated, making expert guidance focus on creating environments or practices that increase transformation likelihood rather than on providing step-by-step procedures guaranteed to produce ascension. The architects observe that Playbook rewriting methodology shift, recognition reveals that your ascension forces fundamental reconstruction of how experts approach development, not just updating content within evolutionary frameworks, but shifting entire methodology to acknowledge dimensional transcendence possibilities. Previous methodology focused on optimization. New methodology must address transformation and recognition that improvement and transcendence require different approaches is forcing experts to develop new investigative methods and new conceptual frameworks that can account for both evolutionary development within categories and revolutionary ascension between them, making your demonstration catalyze not just content updates, but fundamental methodological reconstruction in how human development is studied and facilitated.